Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever really stopped to think, I mean really think, about what's powering your thoughts? Not just the brain chemistry, but the actual energy, the spark.
Very. Or what makes your eyes see or your ears hear? What is that fundamental, well, force?
Exactly. And that's precisely where this deep dive begins, right into the start of the Kenopanishad.
Section 1, yeah. We're drawing heavily on Swami Viditatmananda's teachings here, and
Mhm.
also insights from commentators like the great Sri Sankara.
Our goal today is simple, really, to pull out the core understanding of this first section. What are the key takeaways?
What's it really pointing at, this initial inquiry?
So this first section, it doesn't mess around, does it? It just jumps right in.
Straight in. A series of questions, basically what directs the mind, what makes the senses function, the eye, the ear.
What pushes the vital life energy prana? The text uses phrases like kina ishitam. By what is it propelled or desired?
Yeah, and it's crucial to get that it's not asking about the physical eye or the brain tissue itself.
No, it's deeper. It's asking about the animating principle, the power behind the curtain, you could say.
It's like asking what makes the light bulb light up, not just how the filament is built. It's seeking the ultimate
The
source.
source that enables the mind, the senses, the life force.
Exactly. And interestingly, prana comes up pretty early in the discussion within the sources we looked at.
Right, describes as the energy provider, the vital force.
Yes. And this connects initially to that whole perspective of karma kanda, the path of action in the Vedas.
Okay, how so?
Well, the idea is that prana is this vital energy, and through actions, karma, it gets sort of utilized and even purified.
So our actions are fueled by prana,
Mhm.
and these actions lead to specific outcomes, specific results.
Absolutely. And those results can be quite significant, good experiences, maybe even attaining other realms like Svarga, the heavenly realms mentioned.
So this path of action, the karma kanda, it's not useless or wrong. It deals with real energy, produces real effects.
Oh, definitely. It can lead to purification, desirable states, achieving goals like Svarga. The sources are clear on that.
But there's always a but, isn't there?
There is. The crucial point highlighted is that these results, even heavenly ones, are, well, temporary.
Oh, they're still within the cycle, samsara.
Exactly. Still within that whole cycle of birth, death, maybe heavenly states, then back again. They're transient, not permanent.
Okay, so if the ultimate goal is something beyond that cycle, like
Mhm.
moksha, liberation,
Then action alone, even really good, pure action, isn't enough to get you there. It operates within samsara.
got it. And that's the pivot point, where the focus shifts.
Precisely. This is where the need for Jnanakanda, the path of knowledge, comes sharply into focus. For moksha, you need knowledge, specifically knowledge of Atman or Brahman.
But you mentioned purification, so you can't just, like, read a book and get moksha.
Ha! No, not quite. The mind, the inner instrument, needs preparation. It needs to be ready to receive and understand this knowledge.
Prepared how? What does that involve?
Purification. The sources really emphasize this. Things like nishkama karma action, without attachment to the result.
Doing your duty for its own sake, basically.
Yes. And also, upasana practices like meditation, worship, these aren't performed to get moksha directly,
Ah,
but rather to purify the mind and intellect, the antakarana.
so it's like cleaning the mirror, so you
Uh-huh.
can see the reflection clearly.
That's a great analogy, yes. These practices remove the dust, the distortions, the biases, the attachments that cloud our perception. They make one adhikari.
Adhikari, meaning eligible, qualified.
Qualified, exactly.
Right
Ready
there.
to undertake the deeper inquiry. The groundwork has to be laid.
Okay, groundwork laid,
Mm.
mind purified. What is this Atman or Brahman that Jnanakanda points to? The descriptions sound pretty unique.
They really are, and perhaps the most fundamental description is that Atman Brahman is the ultimate subject. It's never an object.
Subject, not object. Unpack that a bit.
Well, think about anything you experience. A sound, a feeling, a thought, the chair you're sitting on. They are all objects of your awareness.
Okay, things I perceive or know.
Right. But Atman is the awareness itself, the consciousness, the knower. It's that which experiences everything else.
So it's not something out there to be found or achieved.
Absolutely not. The sources state it's nitya prapta, eternally present, already attained. It is your true nature, svabhava siddha.
Inherently perfect.
Inherently perfect. It's not something you lack and need to gain. You are it. Trying to find it is like, well, the classic example is trying to see your own eyes.
You can't make them an object of sight because they are the instrument of sight.
Precisely. So it's not about attainment, it's about recognition.
Recognition. And how is it described? What are its qualities, if we can even use that word?
Well, the texts use terms like Svayam Prakasha, self-effulgent. It shines by its own light. It doesn't need another light to be seen. It is the light of consciousness that illumines everything else.
Okay. Self-luminous.
And Shuddha, pure, untouched by anything. And Nirvikara, unchanging, without modification. It's the constant underlying reality, the Chaitanya, pure consciousness.
And this is the power source behind the mind and senses we started with.
Yes, that's the link back to the opening question. Atman is the power enabling the mind to think, the eye to see, prana to function. They derive their capacity from it.
But it's distinct from them.
Definitely distinct. The mind, senses, prana, they are described as instruments, tools. Atman is what wields them, you could say, but it's not perceivable by those instruments in the way they perceive external things.
Okay, this is fascinating but also tricky. If it's always present, our own nature, self-effulgent, why don't we just know it? Why the struggle?
The big question. The main obstacle, according to these teachings, is ignorance, avidya or ajnana.
Ignorance.
Yes, because Atman is the subject, not an object. Our usual ways of knowing through the senses, through the intellect, analyzing objects, they just can't grasp it directly. They're designed for the objective world.
So the tools aren't right for the job, in a sense.
In a way, yes. And this fundamental ignorance isn't just lack of information, it's a positive misunderstanding.
Misunderstanding.
We misidentify. We take the body, the thoughts, the feelings, the ego, all objects of awareness to be our true self. I am this body, I am angry, I am intelligent.
Or confuse the seer with the seen.
Exactly. And that misidentification creates the feeling of being a limited, separate person, subject to birth, death, suffering, trapped in samsara.
So liberation moksha isn't about adding something new, but removing this veil of ignorance.
That's the absolute core of it. It's not acquisition, it's removal. Removing the obstacles, pratibandha, the wrong notions that obscure the reality that's already here, shining.
And how does one remove these obstacles? It sounds like it requires some guidance.
It does. The tradition emphasizes the role of the scriptures, the shastra as the means of knowledge, but not just reading them casually.
How then?
Understanding them through the proper lineage, the guru shishya parampara, the teacher-student tradition. The teacher unfolds the meaning of the scriptures.
And the purified intellect, the buddhi, that we talked about earlier.
That becomes the refined instrument capable of grasping the subtle truth pointed out by the Shastra and the Guru. It has to be sharp and clear.
It sounds like you also need a real desire to know this, not just intellectual curiosity.
Absolutely. That's jnasa, a deep yearning for liberation, for this ultimate knowledge. The sources suggest this arises naturally when the mind is sufficiently purified through karma and upasana. The readiness has to be there.
This whole idea of removing ignorance to reveal what's already present, it makes me think of that story, the 10th man.
Yes, the Dashamam Tafam Asi example. It's perfect here.
Remind us how it goes.
10 men cross a river. They get worried one might have drowned, so one counts. But he counts everyone except himself, so he only counts 9.
Right. Then another counts, same mistake. They're all distraught.
Exactly. They think the 10th man is lost. Then someone wiser comes along, points to the man who is counting, and says, "You are the 10th.
The 10th man wasn't lost or missing. He was there all along. The problem was ignorance failing to count himself.
Precisely. The wise person didn't create the 10th man or give him to the group. They simply removed the counter's ignorance, allowing the already present truth to be recognized.
That really drives home the point about Atman. It's already here. We just need the veil removed.
Exactly. The knowledge is a recognition, not an acquisition.
So bringing it back to the Kenopanishad's first section, how does the guru actually communicate this seemingly paradoxical truth to the student?
Well, this leads to probably the most famous and initially puzzling verses. The guru's response is intentionally paradoxical.
How so?
The guru says, roughly, if you think you know Brahman well, you actually know very little.
Okay, that sounds like a dead end.
But, the guru continues, he who understands the state of I do not know it, he knows it. It's about knowing it in a way that transcends our usual categories of knowing an object versus not knowing an object.
Whoa, okay. Neither knowing in the usual sense nor not knowing.
Right. It's not saying Brahman is unknowable. Far from it. It's the very basis of knowing. But it's unknowable as an object of the senses or intellect.
Because it's the ultimate subject.
Exactly. The sources describe it as nirvishesha, devoid of the specific characteristics that our minds grasp in objects. It's known, but known as the self, as a foundation of all experience, not as one experience among others.
So it's a different kind of knowing altogether, a realization.
A realization. Yeah.
Okay, let's try to sum up this first dive into section 1, drawing from Swami Viditatmananda and the commentaries. What's the absolute core takeaway?
I think the core message is this profound shift in perspective, the ultimate power, the source behind your mind, your senses, your life energy. It's not outside you.
It's not some external force or deity in the conventional sense.
No, it is Atman, Brahman, which is your own innermost self. Eternally present, self-shining, unchanging, pure consciousness.
And it can't be grasped like an ordinary object.
Right. The path isn't about finding or achieving it, but about purifying the mind through practice, karma, upasana, and then, with guidance from Shastra and Guru, removing the ignorance that makes us identify with the limited body-mind.
Like realizing you were the 10th man all along.
Exactly like that.
So what does this really mean for us listening to this? This deep dive suggests the ultimate power source is already within as our true nature.
Always present, but often hidden by how we usually see the world and ourselves.
It's not about getting it, but recognizing it by clearing away the confusion.
Removing the obstacles.
So here's the thought to maybe ponder. If this fundamental reality, this Atman, is our true self, already perfect, complete, the source of everything, what does that really imply about all our striving, our feelings of lack, our search for happiness in things outside ourselves? What changes if the source isn't out there, but is the very recognizer in here?
That is definitely something to sit with. What does that realization shift?
Indeed, something to think about until our next deep dive.